The restaurant was glowing with Christmas lights, soft music drifted through the air, and every table seemed filled with laughter, families, and couples sharing moments that would become treasured memories. But at one small table near the frosted window, a woman sat alone, staring at a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. 5 minutes earlier, the man who had agreed to meet her on a Christmas blind date had smiled awkwardly, glanced at his phone, and politely excused himself. He never came back. The waiter quietly removed the untouched second menu while pretending not to notice the tears forming in her eyes. Around her, the world celebrated love, but in that moment, she felt invisible. If you believe kindness still exists and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching stories that remind us the smallest acts of compassion can change a life forever. Emma had never expected her Christmas Eve to end this way. At 34 years old, she had become accustomed to disappointment, but this one somehow hurt more than the others. Her co-workers had insisted she give the blind date a chance after months of convincing her that she deserved happiness. They had described the man as thoughtful, successful, and kind. For the first 20 minutes, everything had seemed normal. They spoke about childhood Christmas traditions, favorite books, and dreams they had almost forgotten. Then his expression slowly changed. He glanced toward the entrance several times, looked back at Emma with forced politeness, and eventually stood, claiming he needed to answer an important phone call. He never returned. Instead, Emma caught a glimpse of him through the front window climbing into another woman's car, laughing as they drove away beneath the falling snow. She told herself not to cry. She had spent years building a life where she depended on no one. She worked as a children's librarian, spending her days introducing young readers to magical adventures while quietly hiding the loneliness waiting for her every evening. She had watched friends marry, start families, and move into busy lives where there seemed to be less and less room for her. Holidays were always the hardest. They reminded her of everything she had once imagined for herself and everything that somehow slipped away without explanation. She reached for her coat, ready to leave before the tears betrayed her, when she felt the slightest tap against her sleeve. Looking down, she saw a little girl no older than 6 standing beside her. The child wore a tiny red coat with white fur around the hood, and snowflakes still clung to her curls. Her bright eyes held an innocence that made it impossible to look away. Before Emma could speak, the little girl smiled with complete confidence and asked if they could join her because her daddy said no one should spend Christmas Eve alone. Emma blinked in surprise, convinced she had misunderstood. Then she noticed a man standing several feet away. He looked embarrassed but kind, gently waving as though asking permission without interrupting. Beside him stood an elderly woman wrapped in a knitted scarf, smiling warmly at Emma. The little girl waited patiently, her tiny hands clasped together as if the answer truly mattered. Emma hesitated. Every instinct told her to politely decline. She did not want strangers witnessing her heartbreak. But something about the child's sincerity melted the walls she had spent years building. She nodded softly. Within moments, the empty chairs were filled. The little girl introduced herself as Lily and immediately began talking about everything from gingerbread cookies to the reindeer she hoped Santa would remember this year. Her father, Daniel, apologized for interrupting Emma's evening and explained that Lily had spotted her sitting alone. Ever since losing her mother 2 years earlier, Lily had become unusually sensitive to sadness. She often noticed lonely people before anyone else did. Emma felt her heart tighten. Suddenly her own disappointment seemed much smaller. As dinner continued, conversation flowed naturally. Daniel shared stories about balancing work while raising Lily alone. His mother occasionally interrupted with funny childhood memories that made everyone laugh. Emma found herself smiling more than she had in months. The restaurant that had felt unbearably lonely only half an hour earlier now seemed warm and alive. When dessert arrived, Lily insisted everyone share the largest chocolate cake available because Christmas calories did not count. Even the waiter laughed. For the first time in years, Emma forgot to watch the clock. Outside, snow continued to fall in thick, gentle flakes. Christmas lights reflected across the streets like tiny stars scattered over fresh snow. Before leaving, Daniel thanked Emma for allowing strangers to interrupt her evening. Emma almost laughed at the irony. They believed they had interrupted her night when in truth they had rescued it. The following week, Emma returned to her normal routine, convinced the encounter would become nothing more than a beautiful Christmas memory. But then flowers arrived at the library with a simple handwritten note thanking her for reminding Lily that brave people sometimes need kindness too. There was no pressure, no invitation, only gratitude. Weeks later, another surprise appeared. Lily convinced her father to visit the library every Saturday for story time. At first Emma assumed it was coincidence, but eventually Daniel admitted his daughter refused to miss an opportunity to see her favorite librarian. Those Saturdays slowly became something everyone anticipated. Emma watched Lily race toward the reading corner with excitement that filled the entire room. Daniel usually stayed nearby, helping arrange chairs or shelving books afterward. Their conversations gradually stretched from minutes into hours. They discovered they both loved old Christmas movies, quiet bookstores, and long walks after snowfall. Neither rushed anything. Neither pretended life had been easy. Emma learned Daniel had spent years believing he would never recover after losing his wife to illness. He carried guilt for every happy moment, feeling as though moving forward somehow meant leaving the past behind. Emma understood grief in a different way. She had mourned dreams instead of people, wondering if life had quietly decided happiness belonged to everyone except her. Spring arrived, replacing snow with blooming flowers, yet their friendship continued growing stronger. Lily remained the center of it all. She insisted Emma attend her school play, invited her to birthday celebrations, and proudly introduced her as someone very special. Emma never corrected her because she no longer knew how to explain what they had become. They were not simply friends anymore. They were slowly becoming family without realizing it. Months later, another Christmas approached. The same restaurant glowed beneath sparkling lights exactly as it had the year before. This time Emma entered holding Lily's hand while Daniel walked beside them carrying carefully wrapped presents. The waiter recognized her immediately and smiled knowingly before leading them to the same table near the window. Emma paused before sitting down. 1 year earlier she had believed that table represented rejection, humiliation, and loneliness. Now it represented hope. Halfway through dinner, Lily disappeared beneath the table for a moment before climbing back up holding a tiny gift bag. She handed it to Emma with such excitement that everyone laughed. Inside rested a silver ornament shaped like a little open book. Attached was a handwritten note in Lily's careful handwriting explaining that every Christmas story deserved a happy ending. Emma could not stop the tears this time. Daniel quietly reached across the table and held her hand. There were no grand speeches, no dramatic declarations. The warmth of his hand said everything words could not. Later that evening, they walked through the town square where children built snowmen beneath glowing lights. Christmas carols floated through the cold air while families gathered around a towering Christmas tree. Daniel stopped walking, reached into his coat pocket, and revealed a small velvet box. He admitted he had planned an elegant proposal weeks earlier, but after watching Lily give Emma the ornament, he realized perfection had never been part of their story. Their story had always been about unexpected moments, ordinary kindness, and hearts finding each other when they least expected. With tears shining in his eyes, he asked Emma if she would spend every Christmas and every ordinary day with them. Emma looked at Lily, who was already bouncing excitedly despite clearly trying to pretend she did not know what was happening. She looked back at Daniel and remembered the woman who had sat alone in this very town exactly 1 year earlier believing she was unwanted. She realized something extraordinary. The worst moment of her life had quietly become the beginning of her greatest blessing. She whispered yes. Snow began falling again, covering the square in white as strangers applauded from nearby benches. Some had witnessed the proposal. Others simply smiled because Christmas has a way of making people celebrate love, even when they know nothing about the story behind it. Years later, Emma often thought about that Christmas Eve. She realized life rarely changes through grand miracles. More often, it changes because one small child notices someone sitting alone. It changes because one family decides to make room at their table. It changes because kindness asks no questions before opening its heart. Emma eventually became Lily's mother not through birth, but through countless bedtime stories, scraped knees, school concerts, and whispered goodnight hugs. She discovered that families are sometimes created not by blood but by compassion. Every Christmas afterward, they returned to the same restaurant. They always requested the little table by the window. And every year they quietly paid for the meal of someone dining alone, leaving before anyone could thank them. It became their tradition because they never forgot that one simple invitation had changed everything. Sometimes the greatest gifts never arrive wrapped beneath a Christmas tree. Sometimes they walk across a crowded restaurant wearing a little red coat and carrying enough courage to ask a lonely stranger one unforgettable question. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate kindness, love, and the miracles hidden inside ordinary moments. Special request: before you leave, please comment with the words, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe one small act of compassion can completely change someone's future. Thank you for staying until the end. May this story remind you that rejection is not always the end of your journey. Sometimes it is simply life making room for the people who were always meant to find you. And perhaps, somewhere this Christmas, someone who feels completely alone is only one unexpected act of kindness away from discovering that their happiest chapter has not been written yet.